So I think the current dynamic around critical minerals are basically part of neo-colonialism agenda from the Western countries. My name is Bila. I'm from the Indonesia Civil Society Coalition for Economic Justice, and I'm here attending the WTO Ministerial Conference in Yaoundé, Cameroon. And I'm focusing on trade issues, particularly in relations to critical minerals and also its impacts on women, indigenous people, fisherfolks, peasants, and the coastal community. So I think the current dynamic around critical minerals are basically part of neo-colonialism agenda from the Western countries. And I think it's very important for us in the developing countries to understand that they want us to exploit our resources for their own benefit in just transitions in making green technology and lowering their carbon emission, which is very hypocritical because it's transferring the emission from their country to our country and our communities. Indonesia has one of the largest, if not the largest, nickel reserve in the world, and we know that very well, and that's a very important part of our economic strategy by the government. But um as far as I know, there are a lot of countries are also targeting Indonesia for its resources. While we want to develop ourselves and create our own local industry, um, bigger countries like the United States, European Union, and Canada, who are big in mining companies, are targeting Indonesia's critical minerals to be exploited and sent back to their countries only as raw materials, not as processed or um, valuable product. So they want to get it for cheap and then send us back the product, which is very much the prototype of colonialism. So even though it is the current practice of our industrial policy may not be the best because we need to improve in order to prevent overexploitation and then the pollution and the impacts on the communities, peasants, women, and indigenous people. But there's also obligation of the developed countries not to colonize and push forward their major corporates agenda. And in this case, I would like to highlight several agreements that Indonesia had done with these countries. First, Indonesia, European CEPA, or Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. There's also one with Canada, Indonesia, Canada CEPA, and the recent one, as you heard, we also had agreement on reciprocal tariff with the U.S. These three includes demand on us for critical minerals. That will, of course, ended up in overexploitation, and we will also be vulnerable of um, investor state dispute settlement that is usually used by mining companies to prevent government um, in imposing or implementing their human rights protection and environmental protection law, because the investors will assume that it will affect their profit. So that's the dangers of these agreements. And I think learning from Indonesia, I think the African region that needs to build their own strategy in industrial development and economic development based on their realities here, and always make sure that civil society is heard and being accounted or considered in order for them to avoid um, ecological and social consequences. So there's no need to come into an agreement with Western countries in terms of critical minerals.